Third rule for a monumental life is simply remember this. It's very important. Originality is the DNA of legendary. Another thing I'm noticing in the world right now, the 95%, the majority, and you know my brain tattoo, if you want the results only 5% of the population has, you've got to be willing to do what 95% of the population are not willing to do. And so most people are caught up in the cult of superficiality and immediate gratification. What they want to do is build a business that is legendary in 6 weeks. What they want to do is be super fit at Federer level within a quarter. What they want to do is build a love relationship that is remarkable in the next 6 months. Well, here's what I've learned. And I've been teaching personal mastery and leadership and working with billionaires and titans and Nike, FedEx, Starbucks, IBM, Oracle, NASA, Young Presidents Organization for going into my 3rd decade. So this isn't from a book I've read. This is from boots on the ground with organizations and A players across the planet. Legendary takes time. And you can find yourself a gargantuan competitive advantage where you say, I'm going to think long term. I'm going to play the long game. I understand that genius and world class and legendary is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And when you do that, you start to raise your level of awareness. And you see your job as a craft, not just a job. And you start to say, I'm not going to put anything out into the world that is less than Steve Jobs' level. You know, Steve Jobs really wasn't an entrepreneur. He really didn't care much about the money. Steve Jobs really was an artist. And you've probably heard me share this before, but there's the great story about when in the mid-1980s, Steve Jobs said, we're going to launch the first Apple Macintosh. And he said, you know, I want this computer to be revolutionary. And when I interviewed Steve Wozniak, the co-founder and Steve Jobs' partner at a Titan Summit in Zurich a little while ago, I heard this firsthand, that Steve Wozniak wanted to create computers that were just industry, that would shake up the status quo. That was his obsession. He wanted to do things no other coder could do. And he told me Steve Jobs was an artist. And so in the mid-1980s, Steve Jobs got his design team around him. And here's what he told them. This is the deliverable, guys. I want this first Apple Macintosh to be so beautiful, it brings tears to people's eyes. But the real deliverable is, I want the inside to be art. And the design team said, well, Steve, no one's going to look inside the computer. No one's going to open it up. Why don't we just focus on a world-class user experience on the outside and beautiful architecture and design? And he said, no, this is what I want. And so when his design team went to work and the engineering team went to work, they literally said, we've got to deliver on Steve's obsession. And when Steve Jobs first saw that Apple Macintosh, when it was produced, he started to cry because he saw the beauty of execution around his vision. And then when he saw the inside, he was moved deeply because Steve Jobs wasn't an entrepreneur. He was much more an artist. And then he looked at his design team and he said, now I want you to sign the circuit board. And they said, why? And he said, because all artists sign their work.